Chapter 251, Demon King Selection 5. We soon arrived at the Yu Zhanghyuk Industrial Complex, formerly Siswitz. Along the way, Yu Zhanghyuk spoke no words and acted similarly once arriving at the industrial complex. The moment the X-grade Ferraragini turned off, Yu Zhanghyuk got off the car and told me, "From now on, I will act separately. Will you come for the selection?" Yu Zhanghyuk briefly nodded before moving his feet and disappearing from view. He seemed to know where he was going and what he was going to do. The one certain thing was that everything in his vision would be broken. "You aren't going to stop him?" I nodded at Jang Haeyoung's question. After all, I made a plan on the premise that Yu Zhanghyuk didn't listen to me. Yu Zhanghyuk just needed to live safely until the Demon King selection. The important thing was what I needed to do now. I ignored the minor procedures and headed straight to Aileen's council room. It has been a while. I hadn't met Aileen for some time, and she looked haggard from the busy industrial complex. Aileen pushed up her glasses and submitted a report. "Since the Duke left, I have been struggling with the other industrial complexes. The party members handle it well." "Party members?" "Yu Zhanghyuk's party. You don't know it. Every morning there are people walking around saying, 'I am Yu Zhanghyuk.' It was founded just before you left. You must not have seen it." "Was it them? Damn. I sometimes thought I could still hear the shouts from that day." Aileen shook her head and continued. "In recent days, a group of followers of the Punisher was created." "Was her identity revealed?" "Not yet. She was suddenly gone soon after the Duke left." "Gone?" A strange feeling entered my heart. Perhaps I had a thought, but it was impossible. It was impossible for such a thing to come true, no matter how I thought about it. Aileen let out a small sigh. "I don't know why I keep reporting to you. The owner of this industrial complex is Yu Zhanghyuk. It doesn't matter, in any case. The Duke should now go to his industrial complex." This wasn't my industrial complex. Since I had returned to the demon world, I had to go check the current status of the Kim Dokja Industrial Complex, formerly Jilabat. I left it to Mark, but I didn't know what would have happened. I stared at the landscape of the industrial complex through the window. Many things had happened since coming here. I got up from my seat and Irene rose with me. "D Duknim." I looked back and Aileen's expression was strange. It seemed cold, sad, and disappointed. Even so, her voice was calm when she opened her mouth. I had studied Aileen in ways of survival and knew whenever she made this voice. Aileen rummaged for a moment and then held out a small box. "This is what you asked for before." The box contained a small watch. It was a small pocket watch designed with very fine circuits. I held it and felt a slight vibration from the watch. As I sensed the slow but surely moving time, many things passed through my mind. The story horizon, the revolutionary game, all the memories that had gone retreated to an out-of-reach place were ticking away. I stared at the watch for a while. I glanced at Aileen again, and she was looking at me with both wrists overlapping each other. I seemed to know what would happen from now on. "Duke Yu Zhanghyuk." It was a motion that crossed both wrists. This was a greeting from the home planet where Aileen lived, Lindbergh, crossing two veins and conveying the vibrations to the other side. As if the second hand of the clock was moving, Aileen's pulse was conveyed to me. "This industrial complex won't forget you." After leaving the Yu Zhanghyuk Industrial Complex, I headed straight to the Kim Dokja Industrial Complex. Originally, it should have taken a week, but the engine of the X-grade Ferraragini meant it only took 2 hours. I sat in the passenger seat and looked at the scenery passing by while thinking about Aileen's words. There was Ondakibai, one from the sinister family with a lump and several constellations. It was a list of those who came to visit while I was away. The Dakibai was probably from the Bureau, and the sinister family with a lump was probably a Weni person. I couldn't guess the constellations because they didn't leave their modifiers. "Careful, there are many strong people in the demon world watching you." There was no need to tell me. I just needed to look at the channel. "Many constellations are paying attention to your actions." Your modifier is spreading among the constellations of the absolute evil system. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is watching you with anxious eyes. There were no 3 days until the Demon King selection. I looked to the back seat where Jang Haeyoung and the Breaking the Sky Master were hugging each other while sleeping. The Breaking the Sky Master and Jang Haeyoung must be tired. In particular, Jang Haeyoung was forced to operate the unidentified wall because of me. Still, their presence meant I could think of something to try. I glanced at the driver's seat and asked, "Department Head Han Myung-go." Han Myung-go glanced at me with a puzzled expression from where he was experimenting with the function of the X-grade Ferrari genie. I didn't know if he was conscious of my gaze, but Han Myung-go cleared his throat. Life isn't easy. Honestly, the timing was strange. Han Myung-go saw my confusion and quickly added, "I felt it while living. Life is supposed to be like this. There are times when nothing can be done and times when things don't work out." It was an obvious statement, but Han Myung-go's expression contained a certain amount of affection. Come to think of it, Han Myung-go had really experienced many things. In a sense, he might have had a harder time than me. I thought about it and suddenly wanted to ask Han Myung-go something. "Can I ask you something?" "Ask me anything." Perhaps the man who gave birth to a child in this world could make a reliable expression. I repeatedly turned the smartphone on and off as I thought about what to say. Han Myung-go seemed to accept my actions and opened his mouth. "Kong, it was painful." "What are you saying?" "I thought that's what you wanted to ask. It is a pain that's hard for any man or woman to endure." I was shocked once I understood what Han Myung-go was talking about. No, I didn't want to ask him about that. Still, I was curious. Where did it come from? "I gave birth in my heart." "Was it painful?" Han Myung-go pulled out a cigarette and suddenly made a serious expression. "At first, I was going to kill you." The bitter cigarette smoke flew out the window. It was shameful and humiliating. I was dumbfounded and wondered why I was in a situation like this. I tried the methods that appeared in dramas. For example, things like eating a lot of soy sauce. It wasn't easy to find because of the situation. There was no sense of reality as I heard this story from Han Myung-go. It would have been an unimaginable hardship for me. I was scared. What if I gave birth to a monster? What if my child ate me, one day suddenly tearing out of my belly and killing me? I was alone for countless nights, ran away and avoided monsters while feeling worried. What should I do about this child? Should I kill it, let it live, kill birth to it, or? I didn't use Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, but the numerous scenarios where Han Myung-go ran away passed through my head. Han Myung-go spoke with an expression I had never seen before. "Even so, do you know, funnily, months passed as I thought about it. Then while struggling, I survived." Han Myung-go was able to survive the grandiose scenarios for one reason. I realized it at that time. Perhaps this child saved me. Thus, I decided, whether I live or die, let's give birth to the child. He suddenly threw the cigarette out the window. Han Myung-go pulled out a new cigarette. In that short time, Han Myung-go looked distant before coming back. I knew Han Myung-go well. He was one of the people who would surely enter the list of 10 worst people I knew. Nevertheless, at this moment, Han Myung-go felt like a decent person. She was an infinitely beautiful baby. She wasn't human, but she was incredibly pretty. I've seen her. She was pretty, which was why Asmodeus used her as his incarnation body. I was just thinking this when the smile on Han Myung-go's face disappeared. The story didn't end well, but I could see what Han Myung-go wanted to say. After a while, Han Myung-go kept speaking. "Thus, Doc just says I should try it. I should try giving birth." "No, I'm worried about Doc just says I felt a momentary prick. My confused face reflected on the smartphone screen. I don't know what Doc SSI is thinking. To be honest, I didn't like the original Doc SSI. That's good to know. Yet I can feel that Doc SSI is strange recently. I closed my mouth. I know that things don't work out well. Not everything will flow as you wish. Even so, don't dwell on it too much and let your heart lead you. It is Dr. SSI who survived whatever happened. If you don't do it right, you'll regret it later. Really, I had lived for a long time and see the world. I never expected there would come a day when I empathized with this guy. The LCD screen of the smartphone turned on, and the file of ways of survival was shown. 3 ways to survive in a ruined world, second revision, TXT. I didn't have Han Myungo's experiences. I never had a child, nor did I plan to have one. Nevertheless, I strangely knew a bit of Han Myungo's feelings. To read or not read the second revision. This was the only thing occupying my thoughts for the last few hours. I was scared that I would be affected by reading the novel. It was painful to confirm the results of my work. I was afraid that my future might be fixed. However, it was laughable from the beginning. Han Myungo's words. Yes, this story wasn't properly born yet. I opened the file of ways of survival without hesitation. Then I started reading as I always did. The second revision of Ways of Survival started from the 4th round. It was just like what happened at that time. In the 3rd round, teacher would have died there if it wasn't for him. Some statements relieved me. Nevertheless, I couldn't change it. Some of the descriptions still hadn't changed. That guy isn't in this round. I still wasn't present in Yu Jonghyuk's 4th regression. I failed the 3rd round. I didn't panic because I had already expected it. I didn't know why the author sent me something like this. It might be to frighten me or to use me for the ending that he wanted. I didn't even know if it was the writer who originally sent this. I slowly closed my eyes, took a deep breath and opened it. Then I thought at the 4th wall. Kim Dokja thought. It was as if I was writing a sentence in a novel. I don't know what he wants in the end. However, no matter the result, I will only make the ending that I want. I wrote the sentence and stared at the air for a while. Understandably, there was no return answer. Instead, it was the 4th wall that reacted. The 4th wall is wriggling happily. I suddenly looked out and saw the industrial complex in the distance. It was the first time I was visiting the Kim Dokja industrial complex. By the way, Han Myungo suddenly reduced the speed. What happened? The scenario is progressing. Scenario. No way, the Demon King selection hadn't started yet. Do you want to enter the hidden scenario area? Han Myungo cautiously approached the industrial complex. The entrance of the industrial complex was bare without a single guard. I opened the window and could hear words being shouted from inside the industrial complex. I'm Kim Dokja. No, I am. I'm Kim Dokja, me. Han Myungo and I glanced at each other at the same time. What is this? A system message followed. Hidden scenario, the Kim Dokja game is in progress. Something strange had happened in my industrial complex while I was away. Chapter 252, Demon King Selection 6. You have entered the hidden scenario area. Would you like to participate in the hidden scenario, the Kim Dokja game? Han Myungo stared at me and muttered in a dumbfounded manner. What is going on? I stared at Bu. Bot Bayet. Bu repeatedly shook her head. It wasn't Bu who did this. Most hidden scenarios were activated according to the will of the star stream, just like the main scenario. Then why at this time? A subsequent system message gave a hint. The owner of the industrial complex is currently absent. An emergency promotion scenario is activated. It seemed that I had been away for too long. I think the star stream has determined that I have no intending of inheriting the Duke's position. Isn't it okay now that you're here? That would be good. The scenario remained unchanged after I entered the industrial complex. Maybe the star stream scenario was twisted by the impersonation act that Yu Jonghyuk and I committed. At the time, there was a message that an error occurred. What is the Kim Dokja game? It is a free participation scenario. Jang Haeyoung opened his eyes in the back seat and stretched. We are currently electing the real Kim Dokja of the industrial complex. At this rate, my name was going to be stolen. I turned towards Han Myungo and asked, will you participate? Why would I do that? What about you, Jang Haeyoung? I don't want to be Kim Dokja. Hai's expression quickly changed and he seemed to be sulking. I don't know the Demon King of Salvation. In order to avoid reality, he had decided to separate me from the Demon King of Salvation. The last one I looked at was the Breaking the Sky Master. Woof woof. I nodded, then only I will join. Is it okay? You don't know what is going on. No matter what happens, I have to go. This is my industrial complex. Immediately after joining the scenario, a message window emerged. Hidden scenario, Kim Dokja proof of identity. Category main. Difficulty. Clear conditions. Prove to the constellations of the Kim Dokja industrial complex channel that you are Kim Dokja. Time limit 3 hours. Reward. Become the Duke of the Kim Dokja industrial complex and 200,000 coins. Failure. All aspiring Kim Dokja in the scenario will have the same appearance until the scenario ends. During the time limit, the aspiring Kim Dokja, who receives the most points from the constellations, will inherit the Kim Dokja industrial complex. It was the first time I had seen such a scenario. This scenario naturally wasn't in the original. A new aspiring Kim Dokja has entered. There are 3 hours left in the scenario. You must be acknowledged as Kim Dokja by most of the constellations. You are the 1130 first aspiring Kim Dokja. The scenario started, and I was summoned to the outskirts of the plaza in the Kim Dokja industrial complex. There was already a struggle to prove they were Kim Dokja. Haha, everyone, do you want to be recognized by the constellations? Show us that you are the real Kim Dokja. I heard the voice of a Dakibai. While I was away, the Bureau had successfully advanced into the demon world. It would be a hindrance to the Weni people in any case. They gathered like ghosts whenever there was a story. Bayet. BU became determined and started to expand the channel. Multiple constellations have entered the channel. I looked around slowly at the other aspiring Kim Dokja. I am Kim Dokja, look. I'm Kim Dokja. The aspiring Kim Dokjas had mosaics on their faces as they shouted. Perhaps I looked like this to the other constellations. Damn, something felt strange. Most of the aspiring Kim Dokjas were just repeating my name and not showing any unusual gestures. They were those who were blinded by the Duke's position and participated. However, not all of them were the same. I am the prophet Kim Dokja. I am the demon king of salvation. Some constellations are interested. Candidate 986 has gained 10 points. I stopped for a moment as I saw some candidates screaming, Kim Dokja, in a plausible costume. I am the king of a kingless world. A few constellations are interested in this candidate. Candidate 986 has gained 20 points. Wasn't he quite good? I entered the center of the industrial complex, and more people started saying plausible things. Some Kim Dokjas could be seen dueling. I wanted to know why this area was so bloody when I heard a message from a familiar constellation. The constellation, Prisoner of the Golden Headband, is arguing that Kim Dokja is a brave person. I was wondering why the great sage, the equal of heaven, was so quiet. He was already in the middle of this situation. There was the sound of a blade cutting through the air, and the aspiring Kim Dokja collapsed. Kuak. A sharp magic power cut at the waist of another aspiring Kim Dokja. Some candidates fled, and the winning Kim Dokja shouted, "This is proof that I am Kim Dokja." A blade made of blue magic power was in his hand. I was honestly a bit surprised. A great number of constellations are interested in this candidate. Candidate 312 has gained 100 points. Candidate 312 wasn't using the white pure star energy, but it was similar in appearance. Candidate 312 glanced at me before starting to wipe out other candidates again. It was only a fleeting moment, but the moment I met his eyes, Aileen's words went through my head. Since the Duke left, I have been struggling with the other industrial complexes. The party members handle it well. I had a rough idea of how things turned out like this. Some of the aspiring Kim doctors here were from other industrial complexes. In other words, there were those who received sponsored information about me and posed as Kim Dokja. My mind was a bit complicated. If I was defeated in this game, the wrong Kim Dokja would enter the Demon King selection. A few constellations are interested in you. A few constellations are demanding that you prove you are Kim Dokja. How could I prove my identity? I had no resident registration or identification card to prove myself. The constellation, demon-like Judge of Fire, says the true Kim Dokja loves comradeship. Uriel, I was about to shout at her when a candidate in the center of the square knelt down and started crying. "Yu Jonghyuk, Yu Jonghyuk, wake up, please wake up." Kim Dokja screamed as he held the imaginary Yu Jonghyuk in his arms. I couldn't help laughing. I didn't do such a thing. Uriel couldn't be fooled by such acting. The constellation, demon-like Judge of Fire, is shedding tears. The constellation, demon-like Judge of Fire, is begging you to show her again next time. Candidate 32 has gained 300 points. I couldn't believe it. I shook my head and passed Candidate 32, only to hear an unexpected statement. The constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, claims that the real Kim Dokja is a Chuni. Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, when did he come? The constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, claims that the real Kim Dokja surely knows the true middle school second-year syndrome. A true Chuni. I think I knew what happened. Surprisingly, at the same time, there was a candidate who started shouting. "Ooh, you Sangesasai, do you know, Kukuk, I am a reader. I have the life of a reader." My thoughts became incredibly complicated. It was a story before the scenario appeared. How did he know? No, wait, I never said it that way. The constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, is satisfied. The constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, has given candidate 97,300 points. I felt desolated and my lips were trembling. At this rate, I would lose my name to these ridiculous people. I should think calmly. In order to show that I was Kim Dokja, I needed to remind them of the events shared by only me and the constellations. "Get your hand off me and get lost, you damn jerk." Candidate 32 has gained 200 points. Something only the constellations and I knew. I like to smile like this. Candidate 97 has gained 250 points. The constellations and I. My favorite thing is a Chinese dress and garter belt. Candidate 312 has gained 400 points. Damn, what the hell was happening? I organized my complicated thoughts and decided to use an easy method. I would directly inform them that I was Kim Dokja, thought the Demon King of Salvation's indirect message. During the course of the scenario, the constellation Demon King of Salvation can't speak. Son of a bitch. There is 1 hour left in the scenario. There wasn't much time left now. I quietly held unbroken faith in my hand. There was a limit to the number of aspiring Kim Dokjas. If I killed all the aspiring Kim Dokjas, the last candidate would become the true Kim Dokja. However, I didn't want to use this method. They were currently blinded by power, but most of them were citizens of my industrial complex. I sighed and shook my head as I gripped and released the hilt of my weapon repeatedly. These actions aren't like you. To my chagrin, Yu Jonghyuk was right. Kim Dokja would never solve things this way. I thought about it. How do I prove my identity? No, what did it mean to prove I was me in the first place? At this time, there was a sudden change. This is electrification, the ultimate technique taught by the paradox Sing-Shong. Candidate 312 was shouted while holding a lightning sword. I was about to point out it was paradox Sing-Shong, not Sing-Shong, when lightning struck from the sky. Uak. The blue-white lightning hit the candidate's blade and tore his body apart. Some candidates screamed and retreated, while some constellations liked it and randomly gave points. At the crucible of the confusion, I looked up at the sky. Something small was falling from the sky. I thought it was time for him to come, but I didn't expect it to be this fast. The small dot that gave off huge pressure landed in the square of the industrial complex with a deafening roar. A blue-white light flooded the square. A small man stood in the center of the lightning and emitted a huge presence. Sparks flew as a voice was heard from the dust. "Where is my disciple?" After a while, the appearance of the voice's owner was revealed. Many constellations are astonished. The small man didn't care if the constellations were astonished or not. There were some constellations who realized the identity of the man. This small body. Wait, don't tell me. They glanced at each other and then fell down in front of the man. Me. I am Kim Dokja, teacher. Numerous Kim Dokjas fell down in front of the small man. I looked at them and clicked my tongue. It was good that they were quick-witted. However, it would be better if their bodies could move faster. Alyek. Kuak. The Kim Dokjas were attacked by the blue-white lightning and turned to ashes. I looked at the teacher kind enough to personally come to pick up his disciple and realize something. I see, in the first place, I wasn't something that could be proven. Your unique story will be played. The story Returnee's Disciple has begun. It was because I was made up of things that didn't only belong to me. Amidst the fleeing Kim Dokja, there was one person who knew the real Kim Dokja. Where is my real disciple? If I came forward, I would be ripped apart like the other fakes. Then I heard a familiar voice. Damn, what is this? Are they all Kim Dokjas? I looked back and saw Jang Haeyoung grumbling. I spoke to Jang Haeyoung. Jang Haeyoung. He looked over with surprise after hearing his name and flinched back with surprise. Kim Dokja. I nodded and asked, did you learn the breaking the sky swordsmanship? Of course I learned it. Why? I smiled and spread open my arms. Use it on me now. Chapter 253, Demon King Selection 7. Kyejios had accepted 3 disciples so far. One was after his first transcendence, and another was 50 years later. Then he didn't accept any disciples for a while. It was because all his previous disciples had died. One was to the successor of the Heavenly Demon School. The other was to the Blood Demon School. It was the events triggered by these 2 deaths that made the paradox Sing-Shong, Kyejios Rodgram, become famous. Enraged by his disciples' deaths, Kyejios struck the homes of the Heavenly Demon School and the Blood Demon School. It wasn't known exactly what happened in Murim at that time. One thing was for certain. Half of the 100,000 great mountain ranges became a bare mountain. The Blood Demon School withdrew its forces from the first Murim. 100 years later, Kyejios once again accepted a disciple. Kyejios asked the disciple whom he met after much trouble. What is this about? This poor disciple is greeting you. Kyejios looked at his disciple with a bitter expression. This was the last disciple he received with his heart. I asked you, why is it like this? This disciple wasn't talented and didn't have any spots to like. The moment they met, he acted familiar and like they knew each other for a long time. He was friendly to the paradox Sing-Shong. The paradox was so bizarre that Kyejios wanted to learn a bit about him. I've been to the first Murim. Kyejios glared at his disciple who was covered in blood. He was a person full of mischief on Peace Land. The reason Kyejios didn't punish him for the sin of stealing the technique and fleeing was because he saved Kyejios' planet. Thus Kyejios waited. Someday, his disciple would reflect on himself and show up again. Yet his disciple appeared like this. Kyejios' eyes narrowed as he spoke. There are traces of the breaking the sky swordsmanship from your wounds. Did you encounter the disciple of the breaking the sky sword saint? Or was it the breaking the sky sword saint? The disciple didn't answer. Kyejios' force became stronger. Answer me. The entire industrial complex wriggled like a trampled bug. The presence spread, and all the Kim Dokjas in the industrial complex kneeled from the pain. It was just a wave of magic power, but it was like he showed off his status. This was the presence of the paradox Sing-Shong. The only one who didn't kneel was his disciple. I didn't want you to see me like this. What does that mean? I have defiled the name of Sing-Shong. Please kill me. Kiagio's eyebrows wriggled at the words. It was because he remembered the message he received before coming here. Please kill me. Kiagio's small teeth made a sound as they grinded together. It is true that I came to punish you, but his disciple was beaten up in a distant place. Moreover, it was a situation where his disciple told him to kill him because his disciple couldn't overcome the disgrace. In such a situation, what type of teacher could punish his student? There would certainly be such a teacher, but at the very least, Kiagio's wasn't like that. Why are you so keen to be killed? Foolish guy. Kiagio's turned his back to his disciple. He didn't know what happened to his prideful disciple, but he would find out if he went to Murim. Did you say it was the first Murim? His disciple didn't answer, but Kiagio's was already moving. That world will know that there is a paradox above the breaking the sky. Kiagio's left, and the war clouds over the industrial complex disappeared like they had been washed away. In the places where Kiagio's passed, the aspiring Kim Dokjas were lying down. Yue. I saw those who wanted to be me and felt very complicated. Jang Haeyoung asked, was it too much? It wasn't a question for the aspiring Kim Dokjas. I stared at the portal that Kiagio's disappeared through and said, that's the only way to move him. Kiagio's had already lost 2 disciples to Murim. In order to send him to the first Murim, I was forced to make a cowardly excuse. What if he kills the Breaking the Sky Sword Saint? Don't worry about it, I responded while placing a story fragment on the wounds caused by Jang Haeyoung. It seemed that Kiagio's was going to get revenge for me, but it remained to be seen how things would turn out. A transcendent of Kiagio's level would notice the trouble occurring in the first Murim. You have triggered a new sub-scenario. Perhaps by now, Kiagio's would have gained a sub-scenario to intervene in the first Murim. Kiagio's was also unhappy with the outer gods. Once he found out the situation, he would be forced to help the Breaking the Sky Sword Saint. You should be more worried about us. What, why? Originally, Kiagio shouldn't appear here. Despite the countless crises I had experienced, I didn't call Kiagio's thought Jang Haeyoung. I originally intended to call him during the Demon King selection. However, I used that card to save the Breaking the Sky Sword Saint. I didn't know if it was the wrong choice, but at least it was an honorable choice. I looked up at the night sky. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is watching you with anxious eyes. Some stars were worried about me. Some constellations are smiling at you. Some stars were taking my crisis as an opportunity. I smiled bitterly towards those stars. If you've seen enough, can you make a decision now? I took a deep breath and declared towards the sky, I'm the real Kim Dokja. The conversation with Kiagio's was open to the public, and no further proof was needed. The stars in the night sky shone at the same time. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire admits that you are the real Kim Dokja. The constellation prisoner of the golden headband admits that you are the real Kim Dokja. The constellation queen of the darkest spring admits that you are the real Kim Dokja. A very small number of constellations disagree with the results. Those who wanted something else disagreed, but this was a majority vote. Many constellations recognize you as the real Kim Dokja. You have been recognized as the real Kim Dokja. The hidden scenario has been completed. 200,000 coins have been acquired as a scenario reward. The faces of the aspiring Kim Dokjas started to change one by one. The mosaic scattered and their real faces were exposed to the sky. For the first time, the citizens confirmed the true owner of the industrial complex and cried out with amazement. Kim Dokja, the real Kim Dokja. The master of this industrial complex is back. More messages popped up. You have formally inherited the former Jilabat industrial complex. The former Jilabat industrial complex has been officially declared as the Kim Dokja industrial complex. Your notoriety is spreading in the demon world. Your fame is strengthening your current stories. A bright light surrounded my body, and my stories were further strengthened. You are the Duke of the industrial complex. Soon, a lonely fight would begin. After the situation settled down, the first place I headed to was Mark's office in the heart of the industrial complex. I'm ashamed. No, you did well. Riots occurred due to the Kim Doksha game and Mark and other officials were detained. I patted Mark on the shoulder and comforted him. You did your best. No one, including Mark, would have been able to stop the Kim Doksha game. In the first place, it was an event that occurred because I went away. It was thanks to Mark that the industrial complex was maintained to this extent. In fact, Mark was a mercenary leader on his home planet and possessed a very high-level crowd control skill. I listened to Mark's report on the surrounding trends. There is news of war coming from everywhere. A group of people exiting the industrial complex could be seen from the office window. Some of them were people who just participated in the scenario and others weren't. A war can't be done alone, don't you know? It is foolish to hold on to those who have no will to fight. Most of them would die from the penalty of leaving the scenario area. Even so, they decided to move. It meant the situation was desperate. The population of the industrial complex is decreasing, and the power of the factory is reduced. The story weapon, the factory was maintained through the work of the citizens. It was natural for the power to go down once the labor force shrank. However, I spoke like it wasn't a big deal. We can't see the outcome with just the power of the industrial complex. The main focus of the enemy isn't the industrial complex anyway. I had to deal with Meladin and Birkin. Meladin had joined hands with Vedas while Birkin was working with Papyrus. It shouldn't be a direct alliance with the nebulae based on the scale of the alliance. They had probably just contracted with some constellations of the nebulae. Nevertheless, it was a power that couldn't be ignored. It was still unknown, but in the Demon King selection, perhaps I would have to fight at least 10 constellations. Is there a plan? To be honest, the odds weren't very high. I had just become a constellation and it would be suicidal to fight them, even with Yu Jonghyuk's help. I have a way. I couldn't say it now. There were too many eyes watching. Many constellations are admiring your ambition. The constellation, prisoner of the golden headband, is wondering what that means. 2,000 coins have been sponsored. In fact, there were a few things that I had thought about. It would have been impossible before, but now it was possible. Before I could use these methods, there was something I had to check first. The fourth wall is wriggling. It read my mind and responded. I slowly blinked as I thought, I need your help. It would know what I wanted to say without me needing to open my mouth. Let me see my attributes window. Until now, I have somehow fought without properly knowing my information. Until now. The fourth wall is shaking nervously. It would be difficult to do so from now on. It would be hard to know the enemy without knowing myself. I already knew a bit about the enemy, so I had to know about myself. Chapter 254, Demon King Selection 8. The fourth wall is showing its teeth in a threatening manner. Fierce sparks filled the air. I quickly ordered Mark to leave the office. I wouldn't be able to figure out what was happening if he was present. Wait a minute, listen to me. I thought about what I could do to appease this damn wall. You love stories. Once this is over, I'll feed you many things that you want to eat. The fourth wall is looking at you with a frown. The growling pressure seemed to calm down a bit. It didn't seem to have any effect. I have something I need to check. I could die if I don't know it. Is that what you want? The fourth wall was silent. Fortunately, this guy didn't want me to die at the moment. The fourth wall was silent for a long time before speaking. The fourth wall says, Kim Dak Ya. Yes. It be Danji Ruse without me. I thought I knew what it was talking about. One of the fourth wall's functions included protecting me from the eyes of the constellations. Thus, it was worried about the constellations harming me once it was turned off. I know, however, this time I have to look. In front of my firm will, the fourth wall was silent for a moment before opening its mouth. 10 seconds on lie. 10 seconds. Yes, it was a bit tight, but it was fine. All channels must be blocked. I nodded. Bu, play an ad on the channel. The moment the order was sent via the Dokibai communication, the screen turned off. Many constellations are confused by the sudden advertisement. Okay, this was enough. However, the fourth wall wasn't satisfied. The fourth wall says, not enough yet. Not enough what? The fourth wall didn't answer. I looked up and Bu was blinking innocently. But Bu was clearly blocking the channel properly. It wasn't enough yet. At this moment, the previous scenario came to mind. Hidden scenario, Kim Dokja proof of identity. In this industrial complex, there was a Dokibai carrying out the scenario. I stared out the window at the ruins of the scenario. The star stream created the hidden scenarios, but it was the Dokibus that guided the direction of the scenario. Many constellations are protesting the unstable channel conditions. In retrospect, Kim Dokja proof of identity was a rather unusual scenario. It was a scenario that precisely knew the demands of the constellations and even contained information about me before the first scenario. No matter how I thought about it, there was only one person who would do this. I sighed and slowly opened my mouth. Bihyung, won't you come out? Ajima, where are you? I came. A charitable medical relief station in Seongnam. This shelter, established with the government's help, was one of the civilian relief organizations that cared for the casualties of the scenario invasions. Han Soo-young shouted while kicking a fallen patient in her way. Kim Dokja's mother, raise your hand. The patient who had been lying down quickly moved away due to the kick. Yu Sanga hurriedly approached and took care of the patient. I'm sorry, are you okay? Hey, Han Soo-young SSI. Han Soo-young was disgusted by Yu Sanga's sharp voice. Go away if you're going to nag me. You are too much. These people are patients. I'm a patient too. As the frowning Yu Sanga finally became angry, the door of the relief center opened and new patients appeared. They were incarnations wounded by the monsters present in this world. They were people the large wards couldn't handle and were forced to come to this relief station. Han Soo-young saw a familiar woman as she looked around. Lee Xiaohua is also here. Righteous Lee Xiaohua. She was a colleague of Yu Jonghyuk who was taking care of the patients here. Han Soo-young sighed deeply. It is a real mess, do you know? She was originally destined to be a very bad woman. How do you know that? I just know. Why can't I know what Kim Dokja also knows? Yu Sanga's eyes narrowed when Han Soo-young mentioned Kim Dokja. Han Soo-young glanced at Yu Sanga and said, Kim Dokja has changed too many things. He saved those who were meant to die and killed those who were meant to live. Is this about the prophecy? You don't know it anyway. I just want to say that I would have never done what Kim Dokja did. Han Soo-young pulled out a piece of dark chocolate and ate it. The bitter taste of the chocolate spread in her mouth, and the bitterness seemed to affect Han Soo-young. The future was ruined by him. The story should flow the way it was meant to, if it was me. If it was you, Kim Dokja, and you would be no different from a character. It was Yu Sanga's voice. Han Soo-young smiled and turned towards the person. You look healthy, Soo-young. Kim Dokja's mother, Lee Suk-young, was behind them. It doesn't matter if I'm healthy or not. My Dokja seems to like unhealthy children. I don't care what Kim Dokja likes. Lee Suk-young laughed at Han Soo-young's reaction before turning her head. It has been a while, Yu Sanga SSI. What's going on here? Before Yu Sanga could reply, Han Soo-young interrupted again. Use good or bad luck, disaster or happiness, fortune. Good or bad luck, disaster or happiness, fortune. It was one of the stigmas Lee Suk-young received from her sponsor, founder's mother. Good or bad luck, disaster or happiness, fortune. You always seem confident. Why are you suddenly trying to lean on something like this? I wish I could solve everything with confidence. You have lost your information, is that right? Han Soo-young and Lee Suk-young were different from Kim Dokja. Han Soo-young only read the early parts of the original novel, while Lee Suk-young only knew the information she had heard from Kim Dokja. In the end, both of them had uncertain future information. Lee Suk-young smiled lightly and asked, "Why did you come to me? Sangha can do something similar with Olympus power." "Are you joking? Did you forget what Olympus did to Kim Dokcha?" The two of them bickered, while Yu Sangha muttered with an embarrassed expression, "I'm sorry, I can't help you right now." "Don't worry about it. I know the situation with Olympus is complicated. Isn't it in the midst of an internal feud right now?" "Yes." Yu Sangha bowed her head with an unconvinced expression while Han Soo-young said, "Just leave it alone. They've had so much sex that their lifespan is being cut. Faster than." Yu Sangha's eyes widened at the unexpected words. Lee Suk-young looked at them and laughed. "Okay, young ladies, what information do you want to know? For reference, I can't see the concrete future with good or bad luck, disaster or happiness fortune. I can only point the way." Han Soo-young nodded as if she already knew. "I want to know about Kim Dokcha's current situation." "HRMM." Lee Suk-young looked at Han Soo-young with a subtle gaze, and Han Soo-young quickly added, "It is because the Korean peninsula could be destroyed depending on how things are going over there. I am hearing strange stories from the constellations these days. Why are you laughing?" "You're just cute." Han Soo-young complained, "Quickly do it." "I've been looking at it for a long time." "Yes, then what is it?" Lee Suk-young smiled. "Well, it can be either. A week ago, it was in the middle, and 3 days ago it was inauspicious." "What inauspicious?" "Yesterday it was lucky." "Then what is it now?" Lee Suk-young pulled out a bronze mirror without speaking. It was a fragment of the heavenly mirror, one of the 3 divine treasures. "See for yourself." There was an unusual nuance in her voice that caused Han Soo-young and Yu Sangha to simultaneously put their heads together. Then faint letters appeared on the bronze mirror. "Great misfortune." For a moment, Han Soo-young doubted if she read the Hanja properly. Hanja equals Chinese characters. "Is this real?" "I don't know. If you're curious, you can ask the Hangik Nebula." She said this, but Lee Suk-young didn't look very comfortable either. Then the surface of the mirror shook and the writing changed. "Ah," the word help appeared. Yu Sangha exclaimed, and the other two glanced at the mirror. Help, it was an obvious meaning, and there was no need to interpret it. Han Soo-young and Yu Sangha faced each other at the same time. Lee Suk-young sighed lightly and asked them, "Then who will go?" "Kim Dokcha is truly Kim Dokcha. How did you know?" Baehyung appeared out of thin air. His fur was shiny, and he was now wearing good quality cloth materials. The Dakibai used to only wear tiger underwear, but that was an old story now. "What about the Korean Peninsula Channel?" "I was demoted, can't you tell? It looks like you're not doing well without me." "You'll know if you come back." Baehyung didn't use honorifics as before. Perhaps it was proof that the relationship between us had changed. In fact, my contract with him had ended with my death. Baehyung stared at me for a while, and I gazed back. "Have you been well?" "It is as you can see." "Yes, I've heard many stories about you." I lightly nodded. "Do you want to come back to my channel again? I will treat you well." Perhaps Baehyung's words were sincere. It was a more dangerous proposal because it was genuine. Well, I didn't hate Baehyung now. However, I wasn't naive enough to join hands with Baehyung. Baehyung was a Dakibai with strings to the Bureau, and the Bureau was one of the most dangerous groups in the world. "Indeed, you were originally such a person." Baehyung's expression was changing. It was natural for the Dakibis to be aloof to those who left their channels. The idea that Baehyung could become an enemy wasn't impossible. Even so, the time had come sooner than I thought. "Then what about this? Build a joint channel with me. It is fine since this is the demon world." For a moment I thought I heard wrong. "Are you serious?" "Think about it once." In fact, it wasn't a bad suggestion. If I built a joint channel with BU, it would allow BU to learn and grow quickly. I understand. More than that now. At this moment, I heard Baehyung through the Dakibai communication. "You want me to turn the channel off?" I nodded. As expected, Baehyung only pretended to be stupid. "I don't know what you're trying to do, but I wish you well. I have a few things to do, so let's resolve the rest at a later time. I didn't understand why Bihyung was so favorable towards me. In any case, I was fortunate. Bihyung changed the settings, and then a message from the constellations was heard. All constellations in the channel are dissatisfied with the channel's connection. I immediately looked at the fourth wall. The fourth wall says, do not look for too low NG. The exclusive skill, fourth wall, has been released. I felt the curtain surrounding my world disappearing. I didn't miss this time and turned on the attributes window. Checking the attributes window. A vast amount of information entered my mind. Character information. Name Kim Dokja. Age 28 years old. Constellation support, none. Modifier, Demon King of Salvation narrative. Private attribute, Lamar Kirin Legend, Demon World Duke Legend, Scenario Interpreter, Black Square Apostle. I could now see my attributes that I couldn't confirm properly last time. To be honest, it was surprising. I thought my attribute would be Reader. Scenario Interpreter. Besides, what was Black Square Apostle? Why wasn't the attribute rating shown? You have checked your attributes window for the first time. The effect of the Scenario Interpreter is activated. In any case, I kept checking the information. The part I watched most carefully was the exclusive skills. Exclusive skills, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint LV, Bookmark LV, Character List LV, Fourth Wall LV, Reading Comprehension LV. One of the skills originally hidden with a could be seen. Reading Comprehension. At first glance, it seemed like the ability to read and understand something, but I didn't think it was that simple. Most of the skills I've acquired so far were like that. I raised my hand to the attributes window without thinking. Then there was the sound of sparks appearing, and the attributes window started breaking apart. Was it already 10 seconds? I thought so at first, but the problem wasn't that simple. A faint ringing was heard in my ears and my head suddenly throbbed. The finger touching the attributes window was numb and the world became dizzy. I felt like vomiting. Beyond the insurmountable wall, something was calling me. The exclusive skill, Fourth Wall, is strongly activated. The situation wasn't improved despite the fourth wall activating. The surrounding landscape started to mix together. It was a scene where things that shouldn't go together were merged. In the midst of this terrible mood, I felt a strange sense of unity. It felt like something I had been wanting for a long time. Then I heard a strange message. Your understanding of the character, Kim Dokja, has increased. What? The moment my consciousness flickered, someone spoke to me. So, I told you not to look for too long. Chapter 255. Entrance as a Character 1. A burning pain was felt from my cheeks several times. Kim Dokja, hey, what is this? My vision blinked, and my consciousness slowly rose to the surface. The exclusive skill, Fourth Wall, is strongly activated. Ugh. My voice didn't sound like me. It was only a moment, but it felt like I had become a different existence and came back. A terrible sensation remained in my entire body. The shoulders being touched by Jang Haeyoung's fingers trembled. What's wrong with you? I couldn't clearly remember what had happened. I asked the fourth wall to check the attributes window, and then I heard a voice. I rubbed my temples and asked, how did I faint? I don't know. I came running because of a sudden lightning bolt. Lightning. Do you know the sparks that appear when you break the probability? That. Did it strike like lightning? Jang Haeyoung nodded. It was the first time I had seen something so big. My coat and other clothing were charred black. I couldn't believe that the coat with the automatic restoration function was damaged like this. The ceiling of the office looked like it had been hit by a meteorite. Are you okay? I'm fine, of course I'm fine. Rather, I felt lighter. It was impossible. My body was burnt like this, but my spirit was clear. The power of my stories felt fuller. The effect of the exclusive skill, Reading Comprehension, has increased understanding. I saw the message and a previous memory emerged. That's right. I had obviously seen such a message. Your understanding of the character, Kim Dokja, has increased. The message marked me as a character. It was something that never happened before. Cool energy filled a corner of my chest. I had seen the presence of characters many times. They were those who came from outside the original novel but was eventually assimilated with the original. They were mostly those who stopped reading the novel. I urgently summoned the attributes window. Attributes window. However, the attributes window didn't easily open. The reason was obvious. The fourth wall is looking at you. I started sweating. Kim Dakya look eid for 15 cons. I'm sorry, really. Who knew how much time had passed? In fact, 10 or 15 seconds to look at the attributes window was a tight time frame. IYLL no TCU for the moment. Wait, let me ask you something. I grabbed the fourth wall before it was about to disappear. What the hell is behind that wall? It was a vague memory, but I definitely saw something before I fainted. I looked a bit closer, and it seemed I had been talking to someone. There were clearly a few shadows. Sleep why? Then the fourth wall fell asleep. The function was still working, but the consciousness had turned off. Shit. You have acquired a new story. The story looked into the abyss has been acquired. This story doesn't have a rating. I stared at the messages in the air with blank eyes. Looked into the abyss. I knew the existence of this story from the original novel. I couldn't prevent the goosebumps. Unrestrained questions flooded my head. Why did I get this story here? What was the relationship between that story and being called a character? Was I now a character, or was I still a reader? Was I still able to change the future? Kim Dakja, Jang Haeyoung was staring at me with emotional eyes. How much better would it be if my situation was as clear as his eyes? If I could read myself like I read these eyes? At this moment, there was a flash in my head. What if I use Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint on myself? I never thought of it before. There was clearly something lurking inside me that I didn't know. I didn't know if it was something the author left behind or if it naturally permeated me during the process of the world changing. The obvious thing was I needed to figure out what it was. However, I hesitated to use Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. Could I figure it out using this? In the first place, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint was a skill that read the thoughts and movements of the target. Kim Dakja, are you okay? I barely escaped from the mire of thoughts thanks to the Dakibai floating in front of me. Bihyung. I stared at Bihyung with a stupid expression. Didn't he say he was leaving earlier? Bihyung started stammering. After the sudden storm. He said he was busy, but he must have been observing in the vicinity. In any case, he was a sneaky fellow. I couldn't trust him. Don't get me wrong. I forgot to tell you that I came back. As I spoke to the Dakibai with calm eyes, Jang Haeyoung looked over here with the frightened eyes of a rabbit. I patted his shoulder with a gentle gesture and asked Bihyung, "What aren't you saying?" As you know, the Demon King selection will be a very big event. It was already expected. The story of what happened at the Gourmet Association must be spreading between the constellations. Some of those present would certainly participate in the Demon King selection. It isn't just getting bigger, there is also a fight over the broadcasting rights. You might have expected it, but I'm not the only one dispatched to the demon world. Then, you know the Dakibai on the other side. I knew the Dakibai. It is a guy with a huge grudge against you. There were two of them. However, one was in Murim, so there was only one more left. Is it Dakgek? Yes. Dakgek, the Dakibai, who was in charge of the Japanese channel, had been humiliated by me and Bihyung. I was lucky at the time, but now it was different. Among the Dakibis mentioned in Ways of Survival, Dakgek was a person with outstanding talent regarding channel management. If he was chosen as one of the Dakibis to lead this Demon King selection, the future schedule would never flow smoothly. In any case, be careful. The channel management is good, so wait a minute. What about your Dakibai? Dakibai. Come to think of it, I felt very lonely. Through the cracked ceiling, the constellations shining in the sky could be seen. It was strange. I might have ordered the blocking of the channel, but I should be hearing their complaints. Yet I didn't hear any messages. Bu, I called out a name with an uneasy heart. Bu didn't appear. At first I thought she was sleeping again. However, minutes passed and there was no Bu. An ominous premonition struck me. Don't tell me. Bu. Bu had disappeared. A new constellation has entered the Bi-90594 channel. The constellation, Bald General of Justice, is greatly moved by your return. The constellation, Maritime War God, is welcoming you with a smile. Many constellations are welcoming your return. I entered Bihyung's channel and familiar names greeted me. I couldn't rejoice at all despite the baptism of cheers. The constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is asking the whereabouts of the Dakibai Bu. Some of the constellations answered immediately. The constellation, Bald General of Justice, is wiping his head like it is difficult. The constellation, King Humu the Great, is coughing and placing his thumb and index finger together. Some constellations say they are willing to answer if you give them coins. It turned out that the constellations of the Korean peninsula had little money. I rummaged for coins in my pocket while Jang Haeyoung opened his mouth. Perhaps she was caught in the storm. Bu wasn't from the Bureau and didn't have a mighty story to protect herself from a great storm. I couldn't rule out the possibility that she was swept away by the storm. However, it can't be, there were no signs. If that happened, terrible debris could be seen. However, there were no traces of Bu. It felt as if someone had completely ripped away Bu's existence. Who was it? Who took Bu? Bihyung looked up from where he was biting his nails. Our eyes met, and we realized that we had the same idea. Bu was the only Dakibai with an independent channel. Fuck, it's those guys. The Weni people. The sentences of the original novel flowed into my head. The only scenario area that isn't under the jurisdiction of the Dakibus. It is the demon world. As written in Ways of Survival, the demon world was essentially the area of the Weni people. In such a zone, they confirmed there was a Dakibai who wasn't a member of the Bureau. Soul is mine. The first time we met, he had coveted the Dakibai egg. The value of an independent channel was so large that it couldn't be calculated at present. A giant story event was currently taking place in the demon world. There was no way the Weni people would miss something happening in their sphere of influence. They had definitely stolen the channel for the Demon King selection. The Weni people were inherently resistant to probability. Thus, they would have been able to take Bu when I was unconscious and there was a storm around me. Damn it, why at this point? Leave it to me, I'll find them. I could see anger in Bihyung's eyes. The Dakibus' honor is at stake. She might not be a member of the Bureau, but I can't see this. Let's go together. Bihyung shook his head. It isn't long until the Demon King selection. In the meantime, aren't there certain things you should be doing? That's right. The remaining time was really short. If I misused this time to find Bu, I might be defeated at the start of the competition. Why are you doing this? You belong to my channel now. Bihyung avoided my gaze while replying. I'm just moving for my channel. You have to win. That way, the constellations will like you and my channel will become bigger. Then Bihyung disappeared into thin air. Jang Haeyoung asked, is it okay to believe in him? There was nothing as stupid as a question about believing a Dakibai. Putting aside my belief in Bihyung, there was no race as mysterious as the Dakibus in all of the star stream. I sighed briefly. Yu Jonghyuk's situation wasn't good right now, and Jang Haeyoung wasn't strong enough to pursue Bihyung. A presence that could help me was in the night sky, but the problem was that I was now in Bihyung's channel. In other words, all messages I sent through the channel would be inevitably read by Bihyung. If so, there was only one way. Jang Haeyoung called the wall. There were quick footsteps in the darkness. Bot Bayet. Bu burst out crying as she was trapped in a cage. Bayet Bot. An elderly man with a small lump on his left cheek was running along a dark road. There was an excitement in his urgent steps. The old man was in a very good mood. The age of the Dakibus will now end. The old man was excited at the thought of showing off his achievement to the other Weni people. He couldn't describe how envious he was when a fellow colleague recently came up to him, bragging about gaining the story of beating up a Dakibai. Now, he brought not a story about beating a Dakibai, but a Dakibai itself. The old man patted Biyu's cage like it was adorable. "My child, you will be the first Weni person with a channel." This was the long wish of the Weni people. It was to take back the dominance of the story from the Dakibis. Black S streamer. From the hell of this terrible scenario, I will free the slaves. The lump on the old man's left cheek swelled greatly. The lump wriggled excitedly as it touched the cage containing Biyu. Biyu stared at the lump with terrified eyes and urgently looked around. She searched for help, but unfortunately, there was no person to rescue Biyu present. Hey, to be precise, it wasn't a person. Won't you put that lump away? Chapter 256, Entrance as a Character 2. The moment the Weni man turned around, 3 spears made of yellow sparks struck in front of him. The Weni man frowned and stepped back. It was an attack containing the power of a great story. A senior Dakibai. A silhouette floated beyond the yellow trajectory that filled the air. It was a baby-sized Dakibai in neat clothing. It was Bihyung. Leave that baby behind and get lost if you know what's good for you. Red fangs flashed from the mouth of the growling Bihyung. The Dakibis of the star stream didn't easily become angry. The constellations in the channels didn't like the Dakibis to express their emotions. However, there were times when a Dakibai became truly angry. It was during those times that the canines would be shown. Why are you coming out for a Dakibai who isn't a member of the Bureau? A Dakibai is a Dakibai. How funny. I gave birth to this child. I might not want to raise her, but shouldn't I act as a parent? The Weni man laughed at the words. Parent, a parent. It was a great laugh, and the lump on his cheek shook. Since when did a Dakibai have such human aspects? If there was such a thing, you should have given it to my ancestors. Sorry, I wasn't even born at the time. Then who will compensate for our suffering? One of the Weni man's eyes concealed by the fog was revealed. It was a great demon's eye. The yellow iris started spinning and emitting a fierce pressure. Who will compensate us for the pain of having our story bag taken away? What is this bullshit? I know that story, but we gave back the story bag. It was even double. The situation got worse, and Bihyung's expression started stiffening. He didn't expect for the Weni man to try to fight against him. Bihyung might have made a big appearance, but this was the first time he was fighting a Weni person. No matter what happens, avoid fighting a Weni person as much as possible. It was advice left behind by the previous generation Dakibis. Bihyung was a fairly old Dakibai of the Soul branch, but he knew little about the relationship between a Dakibai and Weni person. The only thing certain was that the two races had been antagonistic since the days before the concept of the channel was established. The Weni man said, "It looks like you don't know anything. You didn't return the Weni people's possessions." Bihyung was annoyed. "I don't know about that. Just give me that child quickly, if not. There are many types of evils in the world." There was an eerie chill in the Weni man's voice. Before Bihyung could even scream, the Weni person continued. It was like the sentence of an old song. The first evil is an evil that makes someone unhappy. The Weni man's lump was gradually getting bigger. A warning was ringing in Bihyung's head. The second evil is evil that enjoys misery. Along with the lyrics, something was released from the Weni man's lump. It was something that absolutely shouldn't be released. The most repugnant evil is the evil that reveals its misery to others. Bihyung moved without hesitation. The authority of a giant story is being used. Bihyung became a senior Dakibai and gained the rights to a giant story. The Weni person wouldn't be able to resist the power that could manipulate the star stream. By the way, the Weni man was laughing. Didn't the previous generation tell you? Never use that power in front of a Weni person. The story flowing out of the lump started to trap the story around Bihyung's body. The language of the system was entirely black. It was as if someone had covered the world in black paint. The operation of the giant story black. Bihyung was startled. This type of manipulation was only available to the great Dakibus above the highest-ranking Dakibus. How did this Weni man have this power? Perhaps the language of another world. Stupid Dakibai, your mistake was coming here alone. Something was crawling out of the Weni person's lump. A monstrous creature was sending its tentacles through the torn lump. Kkyokyu. The quick tentacles instantly grasped Bihyung's small body. The story song of the Weni person is in effect. Bihyung realized too late the moment the story touched him. Why did the previous generation Dakibus avoid the Weni people? Due to the racial characteristic, the resistance to the Weni people has plummeted. The hatred of the Weni people makes your mind weak. The Weni people's grudge has sharply reduced your fighting power. A feeling of helplessness filled Bihyung, and he felt like an incarnation. Countless gazes pouring from the air struck his body like arrows. The constellation, King Humu the Great, is astonished by the power of the Weni people. The constellation, God of Wine and Ecstasy, is frowning at the source of the Weni people's power. The constellation, Prisoner of the Golden Headband, is forming fists. The constellation, Demon-like Judge of Fire, is greatly angry. The Weni man laughed. We can't apply this power to other races. However, it is different for a Dakibai. The force of the tentacles slowly squeezed tighter and suffocated Bihyung. He could feel the deep grudge of the Weni people through the tentacles. It was a story that showed a near-invincible force against the Dakibus, as long as certain conditions were satisfied. He was appalled by the Weni people's story, which had been filled with the hatred of a race since its birth. You will die in view of your favorite constellations. I will get a very good story today. The story flowed and squeezed Bihyung like he was a fruit. He belatedly contacted the bureau, but Bihyung would become juice before they came. It happened the moment his consciousness was going to disappear under the tightening tentacles. The tentacles wrapped around Bihyung exploded. The surprised Weni man retreated, and Bihyung's small body fell to the ground. It was a tall man who caught Bihyung. What a stupid Dakibai to confront a Weni person. Bihyung turned his head at the cold voice. Bloody boots, a long black coat flapping in the wind. The trapped Bu shouted bad, while the constellations in the sky sent indirect messages. The constellation, Demon-like Judge of Fire, is screaming and cheering. Bihyung saw the black weapon in his hands and realized the identity of the man. Why you? He got goosebumps the moment he locked eyes with the man. It wasn't because of the man's skill, Sage's eyes, which was designed by the oldest man in all dimensions, nor was it because of the fierceness around his body. Bihyung had met countless incarnations. However, only one incarnation had the eyes of this man. He seemed to be measuring how to kill Bihyung. The moment Bihyung started struggling, the man threw Bihyung's body back. Stay back. Bihyung fell with a loud sound and rolled across the ground. The man gripped the sword in his right hand without hesitation. The black demon sword started crying, and a solid story of transcendence started surrounding the man. The cut-off tentacles wriggled on the ground. The Weni man stared blankly at the scene, and Yu Jonghyuk opened his mouth. You are the great demon of the horizon. That's right, it has been a while, puppet of the oldest dream. It is the first time I'm seeing you. Ha, you will never know. You will never know even when going through 1,000 deaths and living 1,000 lives again. Because you are. Yu Jonghyuk had no intention of listening to the Weni man's bullshit, and his sword cut through the space. The Weni man saw the blade passing right in front of his nose and shouted, "Wouldn't it be good if we both backed away at this point? You have nothing to do with this situation. Give me Shin Yusong." What? He followed Yu Jonghyuk's gaze towards the cage where Bu was trapped. The Weni man finally realized how the situation had gone wrong. Are you aiming for the Dakibai? Bah, it is no use for a human to have a channel. I don't need a channel. Bu's eyes shook from inside the cage. The fallen Bi Ihyung stood up and listened blankly. The atmosphere of transcendence surrounded Yu Jonghyuk's blade. The Wenny man laughed. I'm dumbfounded. Don't you know the value of this Dakibai? It is unreasonable for you in this round. It is useless even with the person called Kim Dokja, no matter how many variables the flow of the star stream. The sparks of transcendence appeared, and a waterfall of magic power poured from Yu Jonghyuk's black demon sword. The arm of the Wenny man flew through the air. Magic power flowed out from the blade in the form of the breaking the sky energy, and the Wenny man shouted, Stop. You don't know because your cumulative deeds are still low. In other parallel dimensions, the excessive leakage of information caused sparks of probability to splash around the Wenny man. He swallowed his words and yelled again. In any case, you're making a mistake now. Never make me your enemy. I made a promise with my colleagues. I'll get revenge for her. Bu in the cage was shaking. She might have lost her memory, and many parts of her past life had disappeared, but Bu's body was trembling. You'll die here. The Shin Yusung of the 41st round didn't have her memories. If so, who was the revenge for? Yu Jonghyuk didn't know. He just swung his sword. Just like revenge for the first round was completed in the second round, and revenge for the second round was completed in the third round. He tore at the tentacles coming from the lump, and then placed a huge sword against one of the Wenny man's arms. The next moment, Yu Jonghyuk was standing behind the Wenny man. The energy of breaking the sky flooded the entire space. Wait a minute, stop. The Wenny person's lump flew through the air. The next moment, the Wenny man's body was engulfed in the darkness that emerged from the lump. A curse, I will curse you. The eye of all dimensions will never forgive you. The Wenny man was struck in the mouth by the black demon sword. There was a terrible scream, and the darkness that escaped from the lump completely swallowed the Wenny person. The darkness stared at Yu Jonghyuk for a moment before it completely disappeared. Then a complete stillness came. Yu Jonghyuk stood still for a while from the excessive use of transcendence. Countless system messages entered his ears. You have acquired a new legendary story. You have accomplished an achievement that never existed before. The story, One Who Killed a Wenny Person, has been acquired. All the Wenny people in the demon world have become hostile to you. Yu Jonghyuk slowly walked towards the cage and carefully pulled out Bu. Bu cried out loudly. Her little hand touched Yu Jonghyuk several times. Yu Jonghyuk stared down at Bu for a while before he placed her in his pocket and started moving. The constellation Demon-like Judge of Fire has wet eyes. The constellation Bald General of Justice is wiping his head with a towel. The constellation Maritime War God is so impressed that he is writing a poem. The light of countless constellations was shining towards him, but none of them could reach Yu Jonghyuk. No matter how many years they had lived, they couldn't understand the regressor who suffered the destruction of the world twice. The next moment, Yu Jonghyuk heard a message. The constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is looking at you. It was a star that never appeared in the last 2 rounds. Then why? Yu Jonghyuk felt like the star had been there for a long time. Yu Jonghyuk declared, Get lost, Kim Dokja. Then one of the stars in the sky really went out. Kim Dokja. There was no answer from Kim Dokja. Chapter 257, Entrance as a Character 3. Things have been roughly sorted out. I sighed with relief as I looked at Yu Jonghyuk through the screen of the channel. I was anxious about the bureau arriving, but fortunately, Yu Jonghyuk was faster. It was a good choice to convey a message to Uriel through Jang Haeyoung. The constellation Demon-like Judge of Fire is smiling brightly. It was Uriel who took Yu Jonghyuk to that place. Yu Jonghyuk was angry with me over the breaking the Sky Sword Saint incident, so I decided that Uriel's words would have more influence on Yu Jonghyuk. Jang Haeyoung watched Bihyung on the screen and muttered, It is the first time I've seen a Dakibai so helpless. The racial stories are intertwined. In order to deal with a Wenny person, a great Dakibai or at least 4 Dakibis must appear. You know it very well. Aileen said that everything about the Dakibis and Wenny people was covered in a veil. This is basic information among the constellations. Jang Haeyoung stared at me with strangely respectful eyes after hearing my words. Of course, not all constellations knew this information. The screen showed a short close-up of Biu and Yu Jonghyuk holding her. I will get revenge for you. Goodbye, Captain. Good job. I'll leave it to you. Rest. The sentences that only I could see were passing through my head. Now these words had gone to the place they were meant to. I didn't know much about it, but one thing was certain. At least now they understood each other without words. The things I couldn't read had definitely touched them. I didn't know why, but I felt lonely thinking about it. Kim Dokja, Jang Haeyoung was staring at me. I scratched my head and quickly opened my mouth. In any case, Yu Jonghyuk will do it somehow. This side must be ready. Shit, already. Jang Haeyoung and I looked out the window of the office at the same time. Clouds of sand were gathering beyond the walls of the industrial complex. There was a commotion among the citizens. I could see Mark and the other lawmakers calming them down. Oh, there are some hot-tempered constellations. There are still 48 hours until the Demon King selection. The familiar voice of a Dakibai was heard in the air. High above the industrial complex, Dokgek stared at me and laughed. I was originally thinking the beginning should be more boring. He was obviously smiling, but his eyes were full of resentment against me. No matter how much he disliked me, he couldn't start his own game within the Demon King selection story. This time, it isn't bad to start early. What? A new sub-scenario has been acquired. The sub-scenario skirmish has started. I saw the emerging window and noticed how things were progressing. A sub-scenario. In the absence of Biu and Bihyung, this jerk. Sub-scenario skirmish. Category sub. Difficulty. Clear conditions. Protect the story core of the industrial complex for a limited amount of time, or steal it. Time limit 48 hours. Compensation. Attacking side qualification for the Demon King selection. Defending side 200, 000 coins. Failure. I frowned. It might be a sub-scenario, but opening a scenario in this way was clearly out of the ordinary. Some constellations are dissatisfied with the unfair process of Dokgek. Some constellations are requesting probability conformity screening. Fortunately, I wasn't the only one to think so. I knew some of you would think so. Certainly, there is some unfairness. The number of defenders and attackers aren't equal. Dokgek was sneering at me. It was a smile that told me I could handle such a scenario. It was an obvious provocation. Thus, I have slightly adjusted the difficulty level. As far as this sub-scenario is concerned, the individual constellations of the attackers and defenders will have equal levels. The moment Dokgek spoke, a faint aura surrounded my incarnation bodies. The stats of everyone participating in the scenario is fixed. I slowly clenched my fists before opening them. The attacking constellations would have received the same penalty. I couldn't see whether my stats had fallen or increased. Some constellations are still protesting that this scenario is against the probability. Dokgek had a troubled expression. Don't say that. This is really, you have all become weak. Have you already forgotten that scenarios are fun because they're difficult? The channel became a terrible mess with indirect messages supporting and opposing it. In the meantime, Dokgek pushed ahead with the scenario. You are currently the owner of the Kim Dokja industrial complex. You are playing the role of defender in the skirmish. You must protect the story core from the attacking constellations. I smiled bitterly as I faced Dokgek. Yes, this was what he came up with. Kim Dokja how? Rather than answering Jang Haeyoung, I opened the wide and yelled towards the citizens. All citizens, this is the first time I am personally greeting you. My true voice resonated through the industrial complex. I once again breathed in and shouted, please calm down and concentrate on my words. The voice of the Duke was heard for the first time and all the citizens looked at me. Voices came from all over the place. It is Kim Dokja. That person is the Duke. Unfortunately, I couldn't match their expectations. I can't protect you. Perhaps there had never been such a duke in the demon world. In addition, I hoped there wouldn't be any more in the future. So don't die here like dogs and find your own way to live. I will personally recommend the Yu-Jonghyuk Industrial Complex. I could see the mouths of the citizens dropping open at my absurd declaration. Even Mark looked up in a bewildered manner from where he was calming the citizens. Still, it couldn't be helped. This was the only way to save them. There should be no unnecessary sacrifices in this scenario. You want to free the citizens of your industrial complex. Free them. All citizens of the industrial complex are freed from your influence. The citizens of the Kim Dokja industrial complex have received the escape scenario. The citizens of the Kim Dokja industrial complex can now choose an industrial complex. You have acquired a new legendary story. The story Liberator of the industrial complex has been acquired. Messages poured out, and I left a final message. Everyone, please leave. I will stop them until everyone leaves. Baehyung might have argued against this if he was here, but now he was lying in a distant place. The citizens of the industrial complex are giving a standing ovation for your noble sacrifice. Thanks, but I wasn't planning a noble sacrifice. I focused on the energy coming from beyond the barrier of the industrial complex. There were 4 huge energy sources. At least 4 constellations were approaching. Jang Haeyoung, take Han Myungo and the Breaking the Sky Master, flee and don't look back. Never think about fighting them. What? I don't want to. I don't care if you want to. Go directly to Yu Jonghyuk quickly. There were 4 coming now, but there would be more behind them. They weren't something a transcendent dog, a human whose gender was ambiguous, and a middle-aged man who had been pregnant could face. I am one of them anyway. I immediately ran downstairs and pulled out the story core of the factory. The factory has stopped running. The important thing was to protect this story core. I didn't have to stay in the industrial complex to defend it. I opened Bookmark and used Way of the Wind to climb onto the wall of the industrial complex. Is this what you want? The 4 approaching constellations listened to me. If you want it, then you'll have to take it away. The fearsome constellations followed behind me. The reason I could flee was because we had equal stats. They were 4 and I was 1. I didn't have much of a chance, regardless of whether the constellations were high or low ranking. I ran over barriers using Way of the Wind. The constellations confirmed I was holding the story core and started to chase me. If they took me down here, they could qualify to participate in the Demon King selection. It wasn't strange for them to go on a rampage like this. Doc Gek laughed at me. Ha ha ha, it is very easy to run away. Constellations, do you really want to stay on Baehyung's channel to watch such a person? This son of a bitch, I wouldn't have suffered from this sub-scenario if Baehyung hadn't been distracted. However, I couldn't do anything because Baehyung wasn't here. Requesting a rise in membership level of the Dakibai bag. I had already become a platinum level, which was an increase by 2 levels. Still, platinum wasn't the highest rating. The Dakibai in charge is currently absent. The status update will be automatically executed due to the Dakibai's absence. 500,000 coins have been consumed. Congratulations, you have become a diamond member of the Dakibai bag. Due to the increase in membership level, the items list of the Dakibai bag will be updated. The diamond members could purchase VIP exclusive items. If my memories were correct, the items would have been released by now. You can see the list of exclusive VIP items. If Baehyung was here, he would have hidden this list even if he died. It was because Baehyung's black history was among the items on this list. Random Story Box Ver 1.3, 20,000 C. Story Fusion Box Ver 1.3, 200,000 C. It was as expected. These crazy coin items were being sold. Fortunately, the updated version was the one I was looking for. Shit, what are the odds? Why didn't they publish the odds? In the 71st round, Kim Namwoon bought this wrong thing and was ruined. You have purchased 10 random story boxes. You have purchased 1 story fusion boxes. 400,000 coins have been consumed. The random story box was one of the few gambling items that consumed coins to get stories. Due to the description that the best quasi-myth grade story could be obtained, the incarnations and constellations ran towards this item once it was released on the market. Of course, it went without saying that they all became bankrupt. The result was natural. The probability of getting a history-grade story from the random box was less than 0.001%, and the odds of a quasi-myth story wasn't even 0.00001%. Then what about the remaining 9,999%? Crazy, 50 history-grade stories. There is even the lowest grade. Is this a joke? I grabbed a falling box and opened it with my mouth. Do you want to use the random story box? I knew there was little chance of a good story coming out of this box. Then why did I want this box? The story I wanted wasn't a good story. The story head, shoulder, knee, feet has been acquired. The story don't cut my hair has been acquired. The story nose pendant hanging from the nose. The story earring hanging from the ears. Indeed, it was as I saw in Ways of Survival. In the 1.3 version of the story box, there was a more than 80% chance of stories regarding the body coming out. The most common of them was the nose pendant hanging from the nose and earring hanging from the ears. From behind me, a serpent's fangs grazed my sides and thighs. It was an attack containing the power of a story. I gritted my teeth and activated Way of the Wind to the extreme, hiding behind the ruins of a building. I needed a bit more time. Where are you? I ignored the ugly true voice and confirmed the stories I had just acquired. History grade story, nose pendant hanging from the nose. Description: if you place anything on your nose, it will trigger an effect that makes it look like an accessory. The item doesn't matter. History grade story, earring hanging from the ears. Description: if anything is hung on your ears, an effect that makes it look like an earring will be activated. It is a story made in combination with nose pendant hanging from the nose. Needless to say, these stories weren't helpful when it came to breaking through the current situation. However, it was different with the next item. Item information. Name, Story Fusion Box Ver 1.3. Rating. Description: it can fuse together different types of stories. There is a very low probability of randomly creating a higher grade story. An item that had a very low probability of generating a high-level story when mixing certain combinations of stories. Originally, this item wasn't very useful. The same stories being put together produced different results every time, and the odds of getting a good story were ridiculously low. Nevertheless, according to the character's remarks, there was a bug in the 1.3 version of the Fusion box. The sale of the box was discontinued because of this. Shit, I should have tried it before Anna Croft. There was a bug with the 1.3 version for the Story Fusion box. It was that, when mixing certain stories, the first person who did it must receive a certain story. The 2 stories were poured into the box without hesitation, and there was a bright flash of light. A message entered my ears along with the throbbing pain. The legendary story, Distorting Things as One Pleases, has been acquired. Chapter 258, Entrance as a Character 4. One day, there was a constellation who left such a remark. Every story has a flaw. This means that all stories can be completed. The legendary story, Distorting Things as One Pleases. This story was made by the narrative grade constellation who left behind that remark. The story, Distorting Things as One Pleases, is searching for the target of the distortion. I got up and moved away from the ruined building. I could see 3 constellations chasing me through the dust clouds. It was originally 4, but I didn't know where the last one went. Give me the Sto Raiko Ray. I was surrounded by the incarnation bodies. There was one giant snake that reminded me of Orachi and one giant field mouse. The last one was a fiery dog resembling a Cerberus. The mass production maker had told me something during my visit to the Gourmet Association. All constellations have a noble character. Some of the constellations would build up stories like me to become constellations, while others would lend themselves to the authority of other constellations. In some cases, they might not have accumulated excellent stories, but they were lucky enough to fall into an advantageous area and become a constellation. What if I don't want to give it to you? It was the case with the guys in front of me. The constellation, Nouveau Rich Snake Boss, is staring at you. They were those who received the patronage of constellations, or, fortunately, became constellations by eating other beginner constellations or incarnations. The constellation Nail-Eating Rat is coveting your nails. The constellation Dog who threw himself into the flames is looking at the surrounding constellations. I knew I would eventually bump into them from the moment they appeared in front of me. Many constellations are looking forward to your battle. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is looking forward to your performance. I could feel the hot gaze of the stars. They would be curious. I hadn't fought properly since becoming a narrative-grade constellation. Doc Gex spoke from the air. Haha, you are still stupid. Are you really going to fight? I listened to Doc Gex's words and gritted my teeth. The three constellations in front of me had exactly the same level of combat power as me. It was due to Doc Gex's penalty, a penalty where everyone in the scenario had the same combat power. I used Way of the Wind to avoid the poisonous liquid that poured out of the Nouveau Rich Snake Boss' mouth. At almost the same time, the nail-eating rat swiped his nails towards me. The moment I rolled around on the ground, the surroundings were filled with the flames of the dog who threw himself into the flames. I moved around the flames and pulled out my newest thing. This was a fight that couldn't be won if we faced each other with our incarnation bodies. This was if it was only the force of the incarnation body. The exclusive skill character list is activated. They might be animals, but they were still great grade constellations. Originally, I couldn't look at them with this skill. The effect of Looked into the Abyss has increased the effect of all your skills. The exclusive skill character list is amplified. This time was different. You will be able to view constellations who are lower rated than you. You can now read the constellation information of Nouveau Rich Snake Boss. You can now read the constellation information of Nail-Eating Rat. You can now read the constellation information of Dog who threw himself into the flames. I looked at the characteristics of these guys. Of course, it didn't make sense to simply identify the stats or attributes information when combat power was set at a certain point. The effective character list will randomly output a list of the constellation stories. A list of their stories quickly crossed my eyes. Snake eating other snakes. Rat turning into a person. Loyalty towards the master. Predator of the weak. In the meantime, countless attacks were focused on me. The fist of the Nouveau Rich Snake Boss grazed past my shoulders. My body flew through the air from an attack by the nail-eating rat, and my skin was burnt by the flames of the dog who threw himself into the flames. Your reading speed has increased due to the attribute effect. I didn't back down and kept reading their list of stories. They were constellations and had an excellent number of stories. Some were legendary while most were history grade. Rat who stole the words of the night. Fear of rodents. Mine is mine, yours is mine too. Towards Plandas. How long had it been? My legs were paralyzed and the Nouveau Rich Snake Boss wound around my body. My vision was literally reversed as my body was captured by him. Give me the Sto Raiko Ray. The strong grip on my body made my bones feel twisted. It was a mighty power that the infinite dimension space coat couldn't bear. Story fragments fell down from my body like crumbs. The constellations who love cruel stories are excited. Some of the constellations want to see your body torn apart. The eyes of the snake changed at the indirect messages of the constellations. Having the name of constellation didn't mean all of them were on the same level. They were more like incarnations. They were watched by other constellations and received coins from them. I have one question. Why do you want to live like this? The nay-leading rat raised his head with a sound. Q-woo. I smiled bitterly. Well, I couldn't afford to think about such things. I had to survive these guys. I feel sorry for you. Right. Usually a constellation should have a king's story. The story distorting things as one pleases is paying attention to your words. Whether it was a snake, a rat, a dog, or a human, those who steadily built up their stories would have a story of a king at the very least. However, these guys have no such stories. You have always fought against beings weaker than yourself and don't have such stories. WH at nonsense. The next moment, a bright light rose from my body. The story distorting things as one pleases has found a story to distort. The story distorting things as one pleases. This story didn't have the power to improve my combat power. The story distorting things as one pleases is starting the story distortion. Instead, it could wake up the potential of stories that hadn't yet found their true power. The direction didn't matter. The story King of a World Without a King has been distorted. The story King of a World Without a King is starting the story. I felt the power of the story seething deep inside my body. The muscles in both arms swelled up. I gripped the nouveau rich snake boss that was wrapped around my body. The snake screamed in my hands. The world without a king is now here. A huge magic power escaped and the story started to speak for itself. The reason I checked the constellations list of stories was simple. It was to use this power. He was born rejecting all thrones in his black world. A brilliant light rose from the sword in my hands. The 4-yin demonic beheading sword. It was the sword used to destroy the absolute throne and the weapon used in the story King of a Kingless World. The weapon responded to my story and regained its original shape. Reign over all beings who aren't kings. W8 this strength. The fact that our combat power was the same didn't mean the status of the stories is the same. Even if the density and number of stories were low, I was also a constellation. Gak should have properly recognized this fact. Some constellations are admiring your story application. The constellations of the Big Dipper are paying attention to you. Gak was bewildered and he frantically tried to manipulate the scenario. However, now it was too late to change the sub-scenario. He had already exhausted a lot of probability because of the excessive sub-scenario. The constellation Nay-leading Rat is preparing to turn its tail and run. The rat realized the unusual signs and turned around first. However, I wouldn't miss a single one. Stop. The effect of the story, King of a Kingless World, is activated. In front of your majesty, all beings who failed to qualify as kings must bow. Qa. Ika. There were powerful sparks, and the bodies of the nouveau rich snake boss and nay-leading rat became stiff. The dog who threw himself into the flames was already on the ground from the moment he saw my story. Grrrr, don't call me. As I approached, the nouveau rich snake boss wriggled on the ground. Only those who had the story of a king could resist this story. The constellation, prisoner of the golden headband, is pleased. The demon king of lust and fury is looking at you. As the king of the monkeys and king of the 32 demon realm watched over me, the 4-yin demonic beheading sword moved. Quack. 1 blow, 2 blows. I struck the head of the nouveau rich snake boss a few times. The scales of the nouveau rich snake boss weren't easily destroyed. The flesh of the nouveau rich snake boss was cut by the white pure star energy and his blood splashed, turning the surrounding land red. The nouveau rich snake boss let out several pained screams before falling quiet. The constellations of the absolute good system are frowning at your cruelty. I pulled the 4-yin demonic beheading sword out of the head of the nouveau rich snake boss. The demon king, Silver Claws Owl, is rejoicing in your execution. 2,000 coins have been sponsored. The constellations didn't know what was really cruel. You should have been prepared if you coveted my position. This was a warning to the constellations. It was a warning that they shouldn't interfere with the giant story. I watched the sky and waved the 4-yin demonic beheading sword. You have killed the nouveau rich snake boss's incarnation body. You have acquired some of the stories of the nouveau rich snake boss. It was the power of the 4-yin demonic beheading sword that could cut off the connection between constellation and incarnation body. The constellation, nouveau rich snake boss, has fallen into a deep sleep with a scream. Perhaps the nouveau rich snake boss would never return to an incarnation body. Then I looked at the nay-leading rat. Soon after, the nay-leading rat received the same fate. The constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, is delighting in your madness. The constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is looking at you with sad eyes. I brushed the blood of my cheeks and looked at the last remaining constellation. The dog who threw himself into the flames was trembling uncontrollably while his head drooped down. The flames that covered his body had already disappeared. The only thing that remained on the dog's body were the black burn stains from protecting its master. I recalled his list of stories. This dog was different from the other two in the 12 zodiacs. The constellation dog who threw himself into the flames is pledging allegiance to you. I looked at the panting dog and hesitated for a moment. Certain constellations would be disappointed if I didn't kill the dog here. However, other constellations aiming for me were running in the distance. The story distorting things as one pleases has come to an end. I had used an excessive amount of magic power and needed to recover. I put away my sword and climbed onto the dog. Let's go to the Zhanghyuk Industrial Complex. As if waiting, the dog started taking strong steps. The scenery passed quickly and I looked up at the sky. The stars in the night sky seemed to be flowing to different places. Some chose to watch and others chose to take part. Everyone started to draw the trail of the story according to their respective desires. The real Demon King selection would soon begin. Chapter 259, The Best at Something 1. The dog who threw himself into the flames ran while carrying me for 2 days and nights. The constellations relentlessly chasing me were a frequent threat, but every time, the dog who threw himself into the flames literally threw his body to protect me. The story faithfully devoting one's life has been repeated. How far did we run? Finally, the brightness of a new day could be seen. The sub-scenario skirmish has ended. You have kept the story course safe during the time limit. The constellations chasing after us stopped one by one in distant places, and all types of indirect messages flew through the air. Some constellations who failed to chase you are disappointed. The constellation, prisoner of the golden headband, is yawning and asking if it is all over. The constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is rejoicing with sleepy eyes. The constellation, dragon lying down, is nodding at you ploy. Some constellations are pointing fingers at your cowardice. It didn't matter if they pointed fingers or not. The most important thing was to survive. Doc Gex stared down at me with disapproving eyes and sent me compensation. You have obtained 200,000 coins as compensation. You have obtained 2 anvil stones for equipment transcendence as a reward. I thought it was around the time for items to enhance equipment to be released. SSS-grade items from the early scenarios were almost like scraps in the mid to late scenario areas. However, using the transcendence anvil stones allowed you to stop the equipment from losing its quality. The income wasn't just that. The story, One Who Went Against the 12 Zodiacs, has been acquired. It might be history grade, but the more stories I had, the better. In the end, these little stories gathered together to form the complete status. In particular, the stories obtained would be useful in future fights thanks to distorting things as one pleases. The constellations chasing you are returning. No long after the constellations hid themselves, the exterior of the Zhanghyuk Industrial Complex emerged. Citizens who received the escape scenario were lining up to enter the industrial complex. Fortunately, Jang Haeyoung and Han Myungo had done well. I spoke to the dog who threw himself into the flames. You can leave now. You don't have to be loyal to me. He didn't want to follow me wholeheartedly anyway. Thus, it was better to part ways at this point. However, after I turned away, he kept chasing me. Pant, pant, pant. I spoke with a frown. What, you aren't going? Yep. Moisture filled the big dog's eyes. The constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is looking pitifully at the dog who threw himself into the flames. The real name of the dog who threw himself into the flames was the dog of Asu. TL, old Korean folktale about a loyal dog who sacrificed himself to save his owner's life. In order to save his master from dying of fire, the dog wet his body and used it to extinguish the fire. Unfortunately, even this name wasn't his actual name. Are you going to follow me? Yep. I hesitated for a moment. Come to think of it, things would be hard for this dog even if he split from me. Some of the constellations are looking at the dog who threw himself into the flames. In this world, there were just as many constellations aiming for other constellations as there were constellations aiming at incarnations. If he countered those who had the modifiers of dog hunter or Melberg's dog fancier, then he would be stolen or killed. So far, he had been safe because of the 12 zodiacs. Then let's go together. Pant, pant, pant. However, make your size a bit smaller. It will be a disturbance if you are too big. Yep. The dog who threw himself into the flames reduced the size of his body. He became the size of a golden retriever. Kim Dokcha, Jang Haeyoung discovered me and waved in the distance. Hey, are you okay? What is that dog? I picked him up. What about the others? They are busy guiding the people. The dog who threw himself into the flames licked Jang Haeyoung's hand. Jang Haeyoung asked, "What's his name?" I wanted to tell the truth but decided to say it roughly. Asu. You have given a name to the dog who threw himself into the flames. The dog who threw himself into the flames is greatly impressed. The loyalty of the dog who threw himself into the flames has greatly increased. If I had known, I would have given him a better name. Jang Haeyoung carefully examined Asu's body and was delighted. This is great, Seijio will like you. I was about to ask who Seijio was when I realized. Are you talking about the Breaking the Sky Master? Was she a female? Did you forget that only women can learn the Breaking the Sky swordsmanship? Come to think of it, the Breaking the Sky swordsmanship was like that. There were too many exceptions. For example, the guy in front of me. Why are you looking at me like that? No, it's nothing. I shook my head to get rid of my thoughts. The important issue right now was Jang Haeyoung's gender identity, because the beginning of the Demon King selection is imminent. The Demon King selection was starting now. It came. Jang Haeyoung looked up nervously at my words. The entire 73rd Demon Realm was shaking. Unfamiliar colored stars appeared in the sky one by one. In order to watch the big event where the giant story was occurring, the constellations arrived from various parts of the star stream. Multiple constellations are entering the channel. Many demon kings are entering the channel. I could feel the mood just be looking at the beings entering the channel. The constellation, Queen of the Darkest Spring, is looking at you. The constellation, God of Wine and Ecstasy, is staring at you. The constellation, Mass Production Maker, is waving at you. The constellations I had met also appeared in the high skis. I tried to relax as I looked up at them in the sky. I had finally come to this place. There were still many scenarios remaining and they were far away. Nevertheless, it wasn't a long way off now. At the very least, I came to a place where these lofty constellations were located in this mountain range. The 25th main scenario has arrived. Excessive skipping of the main scenario has damaged party of your status. I didn't carry out the scenarios in the 20s. I started to 25th scenario straight away, so it was unavoidable that there would be a loss in probability. The main scenario, Demon King selection, has started. Main scenario 25, Demon King selection. Category Main. Difficulty. Clear conditions. Team up with helpers to win the mythical battlefield. Time limit. Compensation. Official succession of the Demon King position. Failure death. You can recruit helpers for this scenario. There will be additional explanations from the Docubus as the scenario progresses. It was a scenario where death was marked as the failure result. I would die here if I lost. It wasn't unfamiliar to me since it happened often. This scenario is held on a dedicated stage. The total number of participants in this scenario is 4. The main participants can recruit helpers if it is mutually agreed upon. You are a main participant in this scenario. I felt something great from the north and west. The constellations belonging to the Meladin Industrial Complex are showing hostility towards you. The constellations belonging to the Birken Industrial Complex are showing hostility towards you. As the constellations in the sky flashed, the voice of the Dakibai was heard. You have been waiting a long time, constellations. They were Dokgek and Bihyung. Finally, the Demon King selection that you have been waiting for has begun. Along with Bihyung's words, a large hologram of a stage appeared on the screen in the air. First, thank you to the mass production maker for making the game stage for this scenario. There was exaggerated applause as the map created by the mass production maker appeared on the hologram. The game Mythical Battlefield is loaded. The map was a vast forest area with huge cliffs at the edges. The forest zone contained patterns of the industrial complex in the east, west, north, and south, which probably signified the starting points of each industrial complex. As you might have expected, this selection isn't simply a hit-and-run fight. It will be held in the form of a team competition, with each team being an industrial complex. Some of the constellations were surprised by the Docubus words and sent indirect messages. Of course, I wasn't surprised. I knew it well through the original novel. The rules of the game are simple. All participants can make a team of 7 people, including themselves. Every team member is given a different position and will play a role in the scenario through that position. It was similar to the so-called AOS games that were once popular on Earth. 1 tanker, 2 close-range damage dealers, 2 long-range damage dealers, and 1 supporter. Finally, 1 all-rounder. His was the game The Mythical Battlefield, where 7 people teamed up to fight. The Constellation mass production maker is smiling. As a matter of fact, this game was made of elements that had been stolen from somewhere. The Dakibai's words continued. There are 2 ways to win the game. One is to annihilate the participants of other teams apart from your own. The second way is to take away the sentence of the other team. Well, there will be more details once you join the game. Rather, there is one more important announcement. Bihyung glanced at me after long words. A total of 4 teams were originally scheduled to participate in this selection competition, but one of the industrial complexes almost collapsed before the game started. I felt uneasy for a moment. Bihyung continued. To consider the fairness of the game, we have decided to tie 2 comparatively unfavorable industrial complexes together into 1 team. Then I heard a message in the air. You are currently a participant of the Yu Jonghyuk Kim Dokja Industrial Complex. It was an unexpected situation. I had been worried about Yu Jonghyuk's team, so now I was able to reduce my troubles. Perhaps it was Bihyung's doing. In any case, why was it the Yu Jonghyuk Kim Dokja Industrial Complex? Based on the order of the Hangul flowchart, shouldn't the name of the industrial complex be Kim Dokja Yu Jonghyuk Industrial Complex? In any case, Jang Haeyoung, where is Yu Jonghyuk now? I looked around for Yu Jonghyuk, but I couldn't find any traces of him. Jang Haeyoung's eyes were wide as he asked back, "What are you talking about? Didn't you meet him?" "Meet him? Didn't he go looking for you?" "What?" I had a bad feeling. I hurriedly used Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. You can't connect with the current target. Damn it, I was wondering how to find this son of a bitch when something flashed on my mind. Fortunately, it was now midday. You have used the midday tryst. The midday tryst. It was a one-on-one chat item that I linked to this guy in the past. I didn't know if it was in range, but this was the only thing I could believe in right now. There are 39 unread messages. By the way, I had dozens of messages from him. I hurriedly opened the window. The first message started as followed. Kim Dokja, I saved BU/sender. Yu Jonghyuk, 47 hours and 39 minutes ago. The messages continued to come over the next few days. But why did you suddenly disappear? Sender, Yu Jonghyuk, 46 hours and 54 minutes ago. I have no time for your childish antics. Sender, Yu Jonghyuk, 46 hours and 39 minutes ago. I will kill you if you don't show up again. Sender, Yu Jonghyuk, 45 hours and 18 minutes ago. It isn't a joke. Sender, Yu Jonghyuk, 44 hours and 39 minutes ago. Kim Dokja. Sender, Yu Jonghyuk, 41 hours and 38 minutes ago. After that, the dozens of messages continued. The last message was, I will go. Sender, Yu Jonghyuk, 23 hours and 14 minutes ago. No, where did this bastard plan to go? I was dumbfounded and quickly sent a message. You idiot, come back quickly. I am currently in the industrial complex. However, Yu Jonghyuk didn't answer. There were no signs that he read it. Instead, I received a scenario message that was like a death sentence. Please recruit your helpers within 10 minutes. You can recruit 6 helpers. There were 2 dogs, one gender-ambiguous human and a person trembling with fear that I would point to him. He had postpartum depression, damn it. I urgently needed to fill up the 7 people, regardless of power. I sighed and opened my mouth. I will choose the helpers. The 2 dogs, Jang Haeyoung and Han Myungo, were included, but I still needed 2 more. Even if 1 spot was left for Yu Jonghyuk, 1 more person had to be recruited separately. I looked up at the sky. Every constellation in the channel is listening to you. Now it was time to test my network. Chapter 260, The Best at Something 2. The moment I opened my mouth towards the constellations, the frightened Han Myungo raised his hands. Don't include me. Honestly, I don't think I will be any help. He was frightened. All participants and helpers would be at least a great grade constellation. It was a power that head manager Han of Minosoft didn't have. I touched Han Myungo's shoulder and told him, please fill in the number of people. It isn't a real death even if you die in there. Just close your eyes and play the game. The mythical battlefield had a total of 3 chances. If I lost this round, I could make up for it in the next round and the round after that. But it will be painful. Yes. Then I don't want to, I will. Thank you, Department Head Nim. You have gained Demon Earl Han Myungo as a helper. Number of helpers spots left, 5 people. It would be nice if I could get a better pinch hitter, but there were no suitable talents. I could choose Mark or Aileen, but they were honestly inferior to Han Myungo, who was a Demon Earl. I will naturally participate. Jang Haeyoung bumped his fists like he had been waiting. You have gained Dimensional Mover Jang Haeyoung as a helper. Number of helpers spots left, 4 people. How much was Jang Haeyoung's combat power now? I heard he came 3rd in the martial arts competition, but I couldn't feel it because I wasn't present. The Jang Haeyoung of any round hadn't succeeded the breaking the sky swordsmanship during this period. I turned my head towards another breaking the sky sword saint disciple, breaking the sky master. Woof. The answer was simple. You have gained knowledgeable dog breaking the sky master as a helper. Number of helpers spots left, 3 people. The transcendent dog breaking the Sky Master could definitely compete with the great grade constellations. This dog would obviously be a big help in this fight. By the way, the expression of the breaking the Sky Master wasn't good. Grrrr, woof. The breaking the Sky Master's blustery gaze was directed towards a dog. I knew what he meant. That's right, he is a new colleague. Woof woof woof. It can't be helped even if you don't like it. Asu, who had been watching quietly, started sniffing the butt of the breaking the Sky Master. Then the breaking the Sky Master had flames in her eyes as she kicked his forehead. Yep. He wasn't reliable, but I had to add him as a colleague. He was better than Han Myungo because he was a great grade constellation. You have gained Dog who threw himself into the flames as a helper. Number of helpers spots left, 2 people. One of the remaining 2 spots was for Yu Jonghyuk. You have registered Supreme King Yu Jonghyuk as a helper. The character is currently not nearby. Once the person accepts the offer, they will be automatically summoned to the battlefield. There are 5 minutes remaining. Now I had 1 spot left. The constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is looking at the constellations. I could feel the eyes of the constellations on me. Let's get a volunteer. Is there anyone who can become a helper? To be honest, I thought there was no way there would be no applicants. The constellations in the channel were those who had been following my story all the way here. If there was more than 1 volunteer, I might be able to replace Han Mungo. By the way, the constellation Queen of the Darkest Spring is making an unknown smile. The constellation Bald General of Justice wipes his head hard. The constellation Mass Production Maker is complaining of back pain. Shit. Many constellations are turning their heads away from your eyes. I glared at the sky with disapproving eyes. This stage might not be deserving of Persephone or the Mass Production Maker, but there were the great grade constellations. I sighed and turned towards Jang Haeyoung. Jang Haeyoung, did you contact the constellations I mentioned? Yes. In order to prepare for this day, I asked Jang Haeyoung to get in touch with some constellations. What about Maritime War God? He said he will think about it. I frowned. How long was he going to think about it? No matter how much he was worried about the probability, was he afraid of going against other nebulae? The constellation, Bald General of Justice, is wiping his head with a towel. Originally, my plan was to bring Breaking the Sky Sword Namgung Minyoung and Paradox Beekshung Kiageo's Rodgram. However, these 2 people were now in Murim. Goryeo's first sword. There was no answer. At this point I felt a bit betrayed. The constellation, Bald General of Justice, has a traffic expression. As he wrapped the towel, he wiped his forehead with around his head. It couldn't be helped. If this happened, I had to choose the second best thing. The constellation, Bald General of Justice, is nodding and looking at you. Asmodeus, didn't you say you would help me? A sinister black star in the corner of the sky wriggled at my words. The Demon King of Lust and Fury is looking at you. The Demon King of Lust and Fury says he will help from the 3rd round. From the 3rd round. The Demon King of Lust and Fury wants to test if you deserve his help. I bit my lip. This damn Demon King was now measuring me. I wondered if I could make it to the 3rd round. Fortunately, I didn't see any names of Demon Kings among the helpers on the other side. In the Meladon, the constellation Founder of Humanity has been designated as a helper. In the Birkin, the constellation The Last Pharaoh has been designated as a helper. In the Meladon, the constellation Poked Out His Eyes has been designated as a helper. In the Meladon, the constellation General of Banara has been designated as a helper. There were the modifiers of some fearsome constellations, even if they weren't demon kings. I could even see some narrative-grade constellations. The desire of the constellations to tear, chew, and taste this scenario could be felt on my skin. It was a situation where I had to grasp at any straws. Uriel. The Nebula Eden is troubled by your suggestion. The demon kings of the demon world are paying close attention to the movements of the nebulae Eden. I forgot that this was the demon world. The image of Uriel and the writings of the scribe of heaven appeared in front of my eyes. As long as the agreement between the 2 groups persisted, Uriel wouldn't be able to participate in the game. In the end, I reached out for another straw. The Great Sage, the equal of heaven. However, the reaction of the Great Sage, the equal of heaven. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is scoffing at you. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is clicking his tongue at the constellations of the other industrial complexes. He seemed to think that this stage didn't fit his pride as the Monkey King. It would hurt his self-esteem to lower himself to this scenario. The constellation Abyssal black flame dragon is chuckling towards you. Jang Haeyoung asked like he had heard the message. What about the fire dragon? No. Why, he's better than I thought. I knew the abyssal black flame dragon wasn't a bad guy, but his power was too risky to borrow. Crucially, there was a separate place where the abyssal black flame dragon was needed. I eventually sighed. It can't be helped. The only remaining constellation is... Who? The constellation, bald general of justice, is holding his bamboo stick like he has been waiting. Jang Haeyoung, send a message to secretive plotter. Some constellations are surprised by your choice. The constellation secretive plotter. Of the 4 main constellations in my channel, he was the only one whose identity I didn't know. I didn't know why he hadn't showed up in my channel when the great sage, the equal of heaven, and the black dragon had appeared. A small number of constellations are afraid of your choice. Some constellations are trying to dissuade you from your choice. The reactions of the constellations were understandable. I wasn't sure about the identity of the secretive plotter, but it was highly likely he was an outer god. He also had enough influence to knock away the great old ones. Perhaps the other constellations were deeply conscious of this fact. Jang Haeyoung typed something in the air before calling out to me, Kim Dokja, did you say it properly? Why? Look at this. Jang Haeyoung showed me the screen he had entered. The following message was on the screen. This modifier doesn't exist in the star stream. I was stunned and asked Jang Haeyoung, did you enter it correctly? Do you think I'm a fool? Jang Haeyoung once again entered secretive plotter. This modifier doesn't exist in the star stream. Secretive plotter, this modifier didn't exist. The constellation, prisoner of the golden headband, is making an interested expression. The constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, is curious. The constellation, master of the skywalk, is turning on the network. A number of constellations are searching for secretive plotter. I didn't think it would be like this, and was momentarily paralyzed. There is 1 minute remaining. In fact, there were cases where constellations had multiple modifiers. However, was that the current situation? A modifier had disappeared. What now? Jang Haeyoung stared at me with nervous eyes. The remaining time was less than 30 seconds. The constellation, bald general of justice, is screaming and standing up. I looked up at the sky. It was hard to ignore him anymore. Samyongdang, please help. The moment I spoke, lightning flashed in the sky. The constellation, bald general of justice, is using probability to summon an incarnation body. I stared at the incarnation body that was being formed in the dazzling light and thought about it. It might be better to have a trustworthy ally compared to a strong but uncontrollable constellation. At the very least, Samyongdang was one of the constellations who supported me when I first got the rights to open a nebula. The summoning ceremony ended, but the light still hadn't disappeared. A closer look showed a flash of light from the head of Samyongdang. I used my hand to form a curtain as a voice was heard. It's been a while, Kim Dokja. I was impressed by the true voice that contained a formidable history. Dogs and cats could become constellations if they were lucky. This didn't mean they were constellations. It's been a long time, Samyongdang. The 3 meters tall monk. He held a large bamboo stick that was like a giant tree. The great grade constellation, Samyongdang, finally revealed his true self. You have gained bald general of justice as a helper. You have all your helpers. All participants have completed recruiting their helper. The game Mythical Battlefield has appeared in the demon world.